All right, test 1 2 1 2. Checking my sound here. All right, test 1 2 1 2. All righty, looks like we are good to go. Got here a minute or two early. See if anyone will come on, and I'll come on Cameron. I hope you guys are doing well on this Tuesday morning. Well, welcome to another episode of Brand Marks the Spot. And this is a show where I talk about all things branding, design, and life as a solo business owner, where I help you leverage the power of branding to grow your business and make more sales. And it's another day, and this is going to be an interesting morning because this is the first time I'm doing this show live. So I'm streaming as my daughter's doing online learning in the next room. So we're both taxing the internet connection today. So I hope you guys are all doing good with the at-home learning and whatnot. So again, welcome to another episode. This week in Brand Marks the Spot, we're going to be talking about 10 things you should not say to your designer. And this is kind of a cheeky episode where we have a little fun with it. And there's going to be some memes, and maybe some of you who might be a designer will totally get and understand some of this, and some of you might not. But legitimately, these are some things that people will always say to their designer, and there are some reasons why you shouldn't say them. And if you do it right, if your designer does it right, then they would have created an interaction with you where they will basically prevent you from having to ask these things, or ask these questions that you say to your designer. So before we start the show, I am going to go ahead and share. This episode is brought to you by Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy. If you haven't been living under, or if you have been living under a rock this past few weeks, I have been promoting her Digital Course Academy. I am an alumni of her course, as well as part of her private membership. And it's a course that help teaches you how to build an online course from scratch. And because I'm an affiliate, I'm offering a bonus pack, and that was released this week. So if you end up signing up through Digital Course Academy through me, and you go to my link, patricksesko.com/DCA bonus, you're going to see 4 kick-ass bonuses that I'm going to give you that are all related to branding. You're going to get your brand foundation workshop, which is colors in your fonts and a simple logo. You're going to get Canva templates. You're going to get workbook templates, and you're going to get two 1-hour coaching calls with me. So go ahead and check that out. Again, patricksesko.com/DCA bonus. So let's get on with the show, and I'm going to come back on screen. So we're going to talk about the 10 things you should not say to your designer, right? So let's just go ahead and start with number one. Number one, I'm going to see if I can come on camera here. Let's see. There we go. So number one, make it pop. I get this a lot from clients in the past, where you design something and you use a lot of design fundamentals and strategies and things like that. So when you're designing and it comes back to them and they're just like, yeah, I don't know, just make it pop. So if you find yourself saying that, like, ask yourself why you're asking that, and have a little bit more direction to your designer as to what you mean by make it pop, because it's a very vague statement, right? So when you say make it pop, obviously you want it to stand out, but like, why do you want it to stand out? What is it that is not working in the current design? And what do you need to do what you want it to do? So if it's a call to action, you're going to use some design techniques to make that stand out more and create flow in the page to make people want to take that action. So make it pop. We don't like hearing that one. All right, next up is I'll know it when I see it. This is one that used to drive me nuts when I was in corporate America. I was a low man on the totem pole in the marketing division there for a software development company, and it was, you're always having to get approvals from your bosses, their bosses, vice presidents, senior VPs, all the way up the chain. And so there was a long line of red tape and bureaucracy. And oftentimes I would get the comment, I don't know, I will like it. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'll know it when I see it. Right. So, and again, I take partial blame for that too, because these are the things that you need to ask before you're starting a project, and usually in a design brief, to find out all of the strategy information, what's the call to action, who the audience is, what the intent of the project is. And we're talking design in this particular case, whether it's graphic design, whether it's web design. And so part of that is again, it goes back to the designer to find this information out. So when you have a clearer picture based on a questionnaire that you might ask, or just like a little sort of preamble to the design phase, you will find out what this information is. And then you will be able to create something that is not going to cause them to say, I'll know it when I see it. Although you have different personalities. And like I said, in the corporate world, it was always, I'll know it when I see it. And it was almost like they wanted you to just do more work for the sake of doing more work. Thankfully, I'm not in that environment anymore. So, all right, let's go up to the next one. The next one is, it just doesn't do it for me. This kind of is connected to I'll know it when I see it. So when you're giving feedback to your designer, that's fine, because design is partially subjective. I mean, there's definitely a level of subjectivity to design. So you're going to have some people that like something, you're going to have some people that don't like something. So I get that. And again, with design, because there is strategy involved, and design is how something works. So the whole purpose of let's say a web page, for instance, the whole purpose is a call to action, right? So you want to get your readers to take an action, whether that's click a button, whether that's schedule a call. So if you say something like, it just doesn't do it for me, and you need to ask the questions, why doesn't it do it for you? And then you need to convey that to your designer. All right, number 4, make the logo bigger. This is kind of a funny one. This happens almost every single project I do that incorporates a logo. And I always get, we're really proud of our brands, right? We want our logos to be huge and screaming, and we want people to know what it is. But sometimes it's like, it's anti-intuitive. It's not intuitive to do that sometimes, because it's almost self-serving. So you want to serve the client or the customer or your audience. So yes, you want to put your logo branding on there, but again, the focus should be on your customer or your audience, not yourself. And you want to make sure that, yes, you have your visual consistency in there, but again, to just fill space, to fill a logo in there really big, it's almost self-serving. So I suggest not to do that. And there's even a meme that's in the design community. Somebody did like this music video of this, make the logo bigger. So it's just kind of funny, because it's one of the most common things that we hear. And sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. And, you got to take things into consideration like balance and, all of those things. So again, make the logo bigger. There should be a reason behind it, not just because you want your logo bigger. All right, let's see. Is there anyone in here? I see Mike is in here. What's up, Mike? How you doing? Say hey, what's up? All right, number 5. Can you fill that white space? So this is one I get a lot too, especially with people who aren't design savvy. And the importance in design is balance, right? You want to get people to take an action, whether, like I say, whether it's click a button, whether it's schedule a call, whether it's order something, whatever that action is. And a lot of times you just don't want to fill a page up with stuff just because there's white space there. White space allows breathing room for your content to breathe, for your designs to breathe, and it allows for hierarchy of information, which will direct your audience to dive into whatever it is that you're showing them, whether it's a web page, a brochure, anything that's designed. So white space is very important in design in that, like I say, it creates the breathing room for your content, and you want your content to be able to be digestible very quickly, especially nowadays, because most people who are visiting a web page only have like milliseconds to decide whether or not they're going to trust you based on your visuals. All right, let's go to number 6. You can just Photoshop it. This is one I get quite often as well. I think a lot of people seem to think that Photoshop just has this magic button that can automatically change your clothes or put you in a different setting or add a person or, change the color of your hair or whatever that is, right? And then don't get me wrong, Photoshop is super powerful and it can do all of those things. But you have to plan for those things. So if you're doing a photo shoot or you're getting stock photography, there's certain things that just aren't going to be done well unless you like hire a specialist who is a photo manipulation specialist, and you're going to pay a lot of money for that because it's a specialist who can do those kinds of things. So yeah, you can change the color of a shirt pretty easily. You can wipe out blemishes on a face. You can lighten an image, darken an image, and you can even narrow somebody down a little bit, but you can't take 25 pounds off of somebody without it looking horrible, unless of course you get a specialist. So when you're dealing with photography or things like that, always, especially if you're doing your own photo shoot, think about all the scenarios that you're going to be using those photos in and try to plan for them, and think about what can be done after the fact in terms of manipulating and editing an image versus just trying to do something on the fly. So when someone says you can just Photoshop it, it's not as simple as that sounds. All right, number 7. All right. Can you copy this design I found and swap in our logo and branding? Now, this one here is not funny. It happens a lot, but I guess it's funny in hindsight, but this happens quite often too. You can't do that, right? Now you can gain inspiration from other people's designs. You can see how somebody laid something out. You're like, oh, maybe I like how the navigation is up here, or I like how they did this color bar on the side, or I like this color combination, or I like how they did the fonts, or I like the hierarchy of the text. So inspiration is absolutely fine, but to just take somebody else's design, copy it, and just swap in your logo, that is not good, especially for an original design. With the proliferation of templates, you see a lot of websites and things like that that end up looking very similar because they're templated and they're licensed to be able to do that. But let's say I can't just go and take Apple's website and basically copy it, put my logo on there, and say this is mine. So that's a big no-no. That'll get you a lawsuit, especially if you're dealing with a larger company and they end up finding out. And it happens quite a bit. And as a side note, it happens too with a lot of logo designs. And I'm going to do another episode on this, but with like crowdsourcing designs, there's a lot of well-known designers, logo designers that I know that actually get their logos ripped off by these crowdsourcing design sites, and they might change the wording to fit their client, and then just pass it off as their own, and it's a big liability for the end user, and it's a big legal hassle for all that. So don't do that. If you want, you can use inspiration, create a mood board with Pinterest, or collect some screenshots of websites that you like and say, hey, these are kind of the things that I like about this website. What can we do with our brand to make it fit into that, so that way it's an original design? So that's a good one there. That's an important one. Number 8. I don't know what my budget is. So this one requires a little bit of an education from the designer. So oftentimes you're going to get a design brief, or you're going to ask a potential client to fill out a questionnaire to get some information on a project. And then you ask them, well, what's your budget? And then they immediately get into defensive mode to say, oh, well, I don't know what my budget is. So they're basically trying to get you to tell you, to name your price first so they can negotiate, right? It's like sort of a negotiation tactic. I truly believe that, especially for somebody who's been doing it as long as I have, when you go to hire somebody, you should have a budget in mind, right? When you go to buy a car, you know what your price range is going to be. Sure, you want to buy it at the lowest price that you can get it at, but you know it's going to be, between 20, 25 grand for the car that you want, right? So if you want a custom branding package and you go to a designer and you don't have an idea what the budget is, they're going to end up giving you a range most likely. But again, a designer can spend weeks, days, months, a year on a project, right? So that it could technically never end. So when you have a budget, it gives your designer the parameters from which to work in. So that way, if you have $1,000 budget, you're going to get $1,000 design, because you don't want to, the designer's not going to want to just have unlimited revisions and changes and options to provide you. So if you say, oh, I only have $1,000 budget versus a $3,000 budget, the product that you're going to get is going to be commensurate with that. So it's important to know your budget if you are looking for a designer, and you're going to find that you're going to get better quality work, because if the client or if the designer is working within a budget, they'll know how much time to spend on something, and they'll know what the end goal is for your project. All right, number 9. Why does it cost so much? It shouldn't take you that long. So this is another one where, and I don't know what it is with, even though design is more of a business tool than it is an art, although there's an artistic side of design. I don't know what it is about the artistic sort of industry, whether it's musicians or artists or designers, but there's such a devaluation for what we do. People think that I'm a musician as well, which you probably can see in the back there. And in my town, there's a pretty thriving music scene, and I'm friends with a ton of musicians, and we all play out. And it's interesting that just so many of the venues they just try to beat you down to the absolute lowest price, to where, you might be making $10 an hour or something like that. I exaggerate a little bit, but what is it about the arts and the entertainment industry that just makes people think that your time and your talent is not valued? Like, so if you're there to entertain somebody and you do, that's worth something, right? So you should never do that for free. And then this also brings me back to a story. So when somebody says, oh, it shouldn't take you that long, there's a story, and I don't even know if it's a true story. It's kind of anecdotal, but it's about Picasso. And the story, and this is a paraphrasing of it as I have seen it so many times over my career. But the story is, Picasso's at a cafe or a restaurant, and, he's a well-known artist, as you know. And a guy comes up to him and is like, oh my gosh, Picasso, gives him a napkin and said, oh, can you draw me a little drawing? I'll pay you. So Picasso takes out his little charcoal pen, and he does like a goat. So the story goes, he draws like a little goat or an animal or something like that, and he hands it to the guy, and the guy goes to grab it, and Picasso's like, hold on, it's going to be $100 grand for that. And the guy's like, what? Are you out of your mind? It only took you 30 seconds. And he said, no, it took me a lifetime, or 40 years, or however the length of time it was. And that is the concept in which you have to take it into consideration, that I've been doing this for 25 years. So I have, tens or hundreds, or I don't even know how much it is, but tens of thousands of dollars invested in my education, equipment, training, practice, thousands of hours of practice and doing. So all of that goes into it. So that's why when someone who's got a longer career, they're going to charge more pricing, because they've been doing it much longer. They're more experienced. They're more proficient. And this is a value pricing strategy as opposed to a time pricing strategy, because it looks like I'm checking my live feed here. Okay, it looks like we're back. So it's a project pricing or value pricing strategy as opposed to an hourly pricing strategy, right? So your newer designers are typically going to charge by the hour. They're going to be less because they're green and they're a little bit more hungry for experience. Your more seasoned and designers are going to generally be more project oriented and more strategy oriented, and they're going to charge a lot more. And the way to think about it is I've spent 25 years to be able to create a logo and branding package very quickly. So if I'm charging by the hour, it's not in my best interest to do that because I get penalized for being proficient. So it's all about the value the project brings. So think about that when you are pricing. And this goes back to saying, I don't have a budget. So find out what your budget is, and that'll give you an idea of what level designer you're going to get, or what your level designer you're going to look for. Is it just going to be a VA that's just going to do some social media graphics based on the template, or do you need like a custom brand package? So budgets for those two different things are going to be dramatically different. All right, let's go to number 10. And this goes back to pricing, but can you lower your price? This other guy can do it cheaper, or some form of that. And this goes back to the value, right? So when people come to me that way, when they say, can you lower your price? And this other guy can do it cheaper. And I just say, well, if that other guy can do it cheaper and you like his work, then you can go work with him. And I don't say it in a mean way. It's like, it's just, we're not a good fit, because as a designer and a business owner, you should value your worth and you should value your time. And when you start like discounting everything just to get the job, you end up competing on price, not the quality of work, right? And then you're working yourself into becoming a commodity. And even graphic designers nowadays have become commodities, like in a lot of ways, because of the proliferation of templates and crowdsourcing sites and those kinds of things. So I don't say this to sound self-serving, but at the same time, it's important to understand that, hey, if you're looking for the cheapest price to get something done, then go have at it at a crowdsourcing site. You can put yourself into a liability situation by potentially having your stuff ripped off, or the stuff that's provided to you is copyrighted. So when you're working with a designer one-on-one and somebody who has trust and authority in the industry, then you're going to get something that's custom, original, and valuable. So that's the 10. And as a bonus, I have an 11. And this is a big one here. And that is, if you do it for free, it'll give you tons of exposure, right? So we have all heard this at some point in our career, whether you're a designer or whether you're any kind of service provider. And when you're young and you're starting out, that might be the case. So a guy might come to you or you're referred to him, and they say, oh, I have this big audience. If you do this project for me, you'll get exposure to my audience, and that's going to turn into more work. I've done this before over my career, and I can guarantee you that it has never, out of probably 24 or a dozen times at least, I mean, I don't have the actual count, but I know I've done this, especially in my younger years. It's never turned into anything outside of that, because what happens is when you do it for free, there is the perceived value of what you're doing dramatically plummets. And then the person you're doing it for doesn't value the work. So they're not going to, quote unquote, promote it to their audience. And, they just don't want to pay for it. And my pet peeve about this is that if you have such a big audience and you have such this authority in that industry, so this is the client I'm referring to, then why not pay? You should be paying a premium for somebody to do this custom work that you want them to do. So I don't work for exposure. There's a rare occasion that I do as a favor to a business friend, or, we might barter. That is something I definitely am open to, bartering and those kinds of things. But I don't barter for exposure unless, let's just say you had like, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of somebody that's like ridiculously famous. Listen, okay, I'm going to use the Kardashians here. I don't watch the Kardashians, but I know that they're very, very famous, and they have a lot of social media influence. And if they were to come to me and said, yeah, can you design my Instagram page? I might do it because just to see what would happen, because they do have a ridiculously large following, but they are so successful that they should be paying a premium for this stuff, right? So aside from that, what value does it bring to them? And, are you really going to get that from their audience, right? Because their audience is only interested in them. So anyways, I kind of rambled on this one. don't work for exposure unless you're very comfortable with that, because it usually doesn't work out. And if you're somebody looking for a designer, barter with them instead of bartering exposure, because exposure is no guarantee of anything, right? And it usually 9 times out of 10 doesn't pan out. So that's what I got for you today. Thanks again for joining me. Happy Tuesday. I'm in Maryland and the sky is hazy today. And I read that it's because of the fires that are out west. So this is crazy that it's affecting the atmosphere this way. So if you're out west and you're near the fires, so prayers to you guys. Hope you all are doing safe. And I hope everyone's having a great week. So we will see you next week on the episode of Brand Marks the Spot. I'm your brand buddy, Patrick Seska. We'll talk soon.